Hello, my name is Dimitri Martinovich, and you're watching RPTV News. On today's episode, we will be speaking with MARCI IEN, the new Liberal Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre. The riding of Toronto Centre, located in the Toronto downtown east side, has long been the home of diverse populations who live and work and play in the area, with strong representation from Indigenous people, LGBTQ2S, racialized people, newcomers, and people on low incomes. Let's see what MARCI has to say about her new role as the Liberal Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre. Good morning, MARCI, and welcome to RPTV News. We're going to be speaking to you about your new appointment as the Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre, challenging riding, to be sure. So can you take a little bit of time and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved in politics as a career path?
Sure. So first of all, Dimitri, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you this morning. I had been a broadcaster for almost 30 years, and most of it in national news, and the past 5 of it at a talk show called The Social. And during my time there, it was very different, Dimitri, because as a news reporter and an anchor, the stories were about other people. It was my job, like you're doing right now, to ask people questions and understand who they are and bring their stories forward. When I got to the talk show, it was about me. It was about my story. And that was very different for me. There was no neutrality. It was about sharing who I am, a Black woman in Canada with children. So I shared things from the heart, professionally and personally, the challenges, the highs and the lows. And as I did that, I started to talk about things like systemic racism. I started to talk about things, that impacted my kids. I started to talk about Black lives mattering, BIPOC lives mattering. And as I did that, people got in touch. The show was called The Social, so people got in touch via social media and said, listen, you're speaking right now and you think that you're speaking about your story, but the fact of the matter is you're telling ours too, so please don't stop, keep going. And so while, Dimitri, sometimes the conversations were tough, because when you speak about life experience, lived experience, you put yourself in a very vulnerable position. And I kept doing that. And it got to a point where I thought, I'm either going to keep using my microphone this way, and I thought I was using my microphone well, and talk about these issues, or when this writing came up, I'm going to try and action them and make a change in the place that I was born. And I was born in St. Jamestown.
Oh,
and so that's how it started.
So what was the process from, that kernel, that little light bulb that came on, and actually like getting over to the Liberal Party and saying, I think I could be a representative for this area. How did that work?
I was approached and asked whether it's something that I ever would think about. And frankly, I couldn't say no right away. And I'm a pretty decisive person, Dimitri, and I couldn't. And when I started to think about it, I thought, I can't say no, because this is likely where I need to be, or at least try to be. That if you look at life, hindsight really is 20/20. And I didn't know that what I was doing was, putting down building blocks. If you were to ask me, hey, do you see yourself as a politician in 6 months, or even 6 months ago, I would have said no. But when I look at the building blocks, and then I look at what happened, it was George Floyd getting killed that started a lot of the conversation. That's what it was. It was George Floyd getting killed, and I was the only Black person on, the fantastic panel of women that I was on. And so that's where my stories of, systemic things, being stopped by police, all of these things when I started talking about these things, I realized that, you know, if I do this, maybe I can action some of them, at least be at the table and offer my lived experiences.
So how would you best describe the Toronto Centre riding, which you are now a representative of?
Diverse in every single way, every aspect of the word. So when some people, Dimitri, use the word diversity, they mean color, it is, you know, race, it is all of these things. But with Toronto Centre, it's much more than that. There's socioeconomic diversity, right? There is diversity as far as, yes, race and origin and ethnicity, and it's amazing and eclectic, but I would call it diverse, eclectic, beautiful.
Yes. And so what do you intend to do about these needs of the low-income people, Indigenous people that live in this area, the racialized people, newcomers, and so on, the people who have issues with housing and so on?
Dimitri, the best thing that I did during campaigning was to have great conversations with people right where they were. So on the street, we're in a pandemic. So, you know, it's not like I could meet everybody in a hall and sit down and have a discussion with communities. So it was one by one on the street. And that meant conversations with newcomers. It meant conversations, you know, with Black people, with First Nations people, with people that had been living in the riding for 30 years, with people who wanted or want affordable housing, all of these things, people that frankly are addicts or have been, like all these different people. And it was amazing to hear their stories and listen to them. So here's the thing, nothing is going to be solved overnight, that is for sure. But what I also discovered is that in Toronto Centre are some of the best nonprofits, some of the best agencies in the country who are on the front lines. And I think that's where a lot of the solutions are. And so I've been reaching out even now, every day after this call with you, I will be getting on the call with another agency and talking to them about what they're seeing, how they're able to treat people, what they need, because I think the solutions are based, the people who are already doing it, who are on the front lines, who like, you know, Haven is providing hundreds of meals a week. Toronto Council Fire Native Cultural Center providing 1,500 meals a week, Monday to Friday, you know, what that looks like. The other thing that I've discovered is wraparound services are important. It is one thing to shelter people, provide shelter for people, and then just send them back out on the street, you know, during the day. It's another thing to actually have wraparound services that cater to them and their particular needs, whether it is mental health, whether it is addiction, so that people like that are living like this can become productive members of society, can get themselves back to where they need to be. So it isn't just a matter of sheltering people, it's a matter of providing the supports that they need. And I think we can do that a lot better.
So just one more question on the issue of housing. The area of Toronto Centre is being, how do you say, highlighted as an area for strategic redevelopment. Mm-hmm. And there are many, many high-rise condominiums going up everywhere. And it seems as though the people who are having trouble with housing are being pushed into fewer and fewer places where they can live because of this trend. What is the Liberal Party can do in the long term for these people who are having such issues with affordable housing?
The minister responsible for housing, Ahmed Hassan, is from Regent Park, as you probably know, raised there. And so Regent Park is on his radar for so many reasons. And he announced in his rapid housing project that monies, I believe it's $203 million, are available for the city of Toronto. So that money is federal, and then it goes to the city. It is on my agenda to speak to the mayor really, really soon. I'm not yet sworn in, Dimitri.
Oh,
So I'm not yet sworn in. I'm still MP-elect.
uh-huh.
I'm still waiting to go to Ottawa to be sworn in.
So when does that happen?
Well, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. COVID has slowed everything
Oh,
down
yes.
in that the writ hasn't been returned to the government yet. So Election Canada hasn't yet returned the writ. So I am not official MP. I'm MP-elect at this point, but it is on my agenda to speak to the mayor and see, which monies can come to Regent Park, Moss Park, in particular, because there is a serious situation. St. Jamestown too, a
Yes,
serious
yes.
situation when it comes to housing. The other interesting thing that I want to look more into is renting to own, and that scenario. Yeah, because it is something that I have talked to a lot of people in Regent Park about. We've had extensive conversations where people have said to me, Marci, we want a piece of the pie too. We see what's happening around us. As you mentioned, Dimitri, we see the condominiums and, the redevelopment and all of this. We don't want to be left out. And so it would be really great for us to be able to work towards that, to rent to own. So it's something that I want to look at and seriously look at.
Yeah, so there were some programs in that area that were launched a few years ago, but because they took so long to get going, the prices in the houses changed so much that no one could afford or enter, into buying a house, even with the help of these programs. So then the programs were kind of like put on the back burner, but bringing them back up again, because yes, everyone is very much interested in seeing those programs come around again.
Absolutely. Also, Minister Hussein has been a huge proponent of community benefits with regards to developers. So making sure that there is affordable housing that goes hand in hand with these new developments. So that is important too. And that is something we will continue to look at and push forward.
And so what about employment, the employment strategy of the Liberal government in the area of Toronto Centre? What can you say about that?
Well, I look at the youth and I want to center on young people, because there were so many people who said, we've been basically disengaged. Like, what has government really done for us? And that concerns me. It concerns me because, youth employment is really high. I mean, we've got general employment and then youth, which is always higher than the general number. And so when it comes to that, the government has obviously, I don't know that whether or not you've had any dealings with the Canada Summer Program and what it's done, but it is a great start. Mentorship is something that I want to have through a youth council through my office. And what that means is young people not just informing us of what is happening and what they need and their challenges, but also a mentorship program that would involve professionals. It's already being done, Dimitri. It's just not formalized. So there are several young people that are working, and they are artists and teachers and photographers who I've had Zoom calls with, who say to me, listen, my Saturday mornings are spent with young people in my community in Regent Park, showing them my craft, because that's how I give back. So what I want to do is formalize the program, because it helps when you've got a mentor. It helps when you have a start that way to get into a different field. Someone who can say to you, listen, these are the courses you need to take. This is what I did, and then help you with regards to finding a job because they're already there. So I would love to formalize a mentorship program. Ryerson is my alma mater. I sat on the board there for many years, and I was a visiting professor there. And so I'm hoping to engage my alma mater with some sort of formal mentorship program that could combine maybe going to the school with, people that could help young people get jobs afterwards.
Given that the pandemic is far from over, and what will you be doing to address the needs of this community in terms of health and security, financial supports, as we continue in these challenging times?
Well, it's what our government has done for the country, and of course, Regent Park and everybody in Toronto Centre will benefit as well. It is the one thing,
Uh,
Dimitri. Oh,
it's okay. Your
one
camera
second?
just,
I'm
your
going to
cam
make sure that this is plugged in so I don't lose any power. Okay.
okay. All right.
All right.
Good.
I'll start
Yeah.
that again. It's the one thing that I heard while campaigning at the door. It was, we're worried. We're worried about this pandemic. People were talking about CERB. They were talking about, what the government had provided, concerned about it continuing. They were talking about wage subsidies. And this is a government that has said, this is not time to cut back. This is time to give Canadians what they need. But I have to tell you, Dimitri, that, these are also times where we have to pivot, as things move ahead. No one knew exactly what the numbers would be as far as the pandemic. It was hard to tell what was happening from day to day. So this has been a government that has pivoted. When Canadians need, we pivot. What they need, we pivot. And we'll continue to do that. And I think have done that and done a good job. And this is what people said to me at the doors. We do appreciate what the government has done so far. We need it to continue. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
I know you touched on this a little bit earlier on, but as a woman, as a racialized person, and now a politician, what are your thoughts about Black Lives Matter, and how do you intend to, say, use your position to influence and address the movement's concerns?
It's what I've done my whole career, Dimitri. So, 30 years in broadcasting, I was the first Black woman to co-host a national morning show in this country. And so I never took the responsibilities I had as a first for granted. It meant that I was bringing a community with me. And while there have been amazing women before me, like Dr. Hetty Fry and Jean Augustine, just to name a few, it is a proud legacy that I continue. And so what it means is being at a table and being able to offer my lived experiences. It's not about, anybody saying, well, let's find out who can tell us more about this. It's about me saying, no, I've lived it. Here's what happened. Here's what happened during my career. Here's what happened personally. Here's what I can share. Here's what I can tell you Black Canadians go through. Here's what I can tell you we want. Here's what I need to tell you about being a mom of Black kids in this country, and in particular a boy, and what that means. So having this lived experience and knowing that I'm not walking through these doors alone, that I represent a community, means a lot to me, and I don't take it lightly. So, Black Lives Mattering is the reason that I'm here.
Now, with your extensive background in media, what do you think is the role of CBC and the health of the Canadian cultural sector?
The role of the CBC?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't, this is a question that, being with a private broadcaster and
so
the biggest in the country, being a part of Bell Media for my entire career, the CBC is not something that I've talked about. Let's put it that way, that I've talked about. I think that is probably more of a question for someone in heritage.
Okay.
But you can, I think so. I think I'll pass on that.
Okay, all right. Now, knowing that the pandemic is a kind of a result of an acute imbalance with our natural world, what will the Liberal Party be doing about the environment?
We've already, done a lot about the environment, the reduction in plastics, and as well as a carbon tax. That's helped a lot, but clearly there's more to be done, and it's part of our Build Back Better plan. So when we talk about Build Back Better, we're talking about green jobs. So what this pandemic has shown us is who has fallen through the cracks, but also how we can do things in a better way. We cannot deny the fact that are seniors, for instance, and long-term care, and that, you know, homeless, our street-involved population, you know, and racialized communities, they're now at the forefront because they are the people that are suffering the most during this pandemic. But what that means is we need to look at how we care for them. What needs to happen? What jobs can be created when we see our most vulnerable populations? And can those jobs be green jobs? And so this is what the government is looking at, you know, looking at sectors where in Building Back Better, green jobs are first and foremost. And that rolls into young people as well. When I talk to young people these days, there are a lot of, you know, university students that will still call and say, you know, what do you think? You know, is journalism still a thing? And should I, you know, look into journalism? Should I do it? I say yes, but also look into the green economy. It's important, and it's the way the country, if not the world, is going. And this is something that our government is tapping into in a very, very big way.
So here's a question. How will you know that you've been successful? How will you judge your success in all of this as you go forward?
If I've served well, Dimitri. So as I said, I've been making a ton of calls and Zoom calls in the past couple of weeks with what I want to call stakeholders in our community in Toronto Centre. So people on the front lines, people working in, you know, and for nonprofits and who are putting the work in. And I'm also taking notes. So I'm asking them, you know, how can we be better partners with you? How can I advocate for you? And so when I'm writing these things down and also telling them, you know, which direction they should go in, here's the grant you need to apply for. Here's what you need to look at. If I'm able to get work done, if I, for example, can call Dixon Hall back and the, you know, executive, call Mercedes Watson back and say to Mercedes, listen, we talked about so-and-so 2 months ago. And I want you to know that the inquiry that you had, I've got an answer for you. And also, this is the grant that you applied for. I can tell you it's on its way, or it's not, but here's what you have to do, you know, change your application in order to get it. I measure my success if people are successful, if this community is thriving in different ways, if there, you know, aren't tent cities in Moss Park, if, you know, there aren't, you know, homeless people in Barbara Hall Park. Like, this is how I measure success. I measure in people, the people of my riding, are they doing well? Have I been able to move the needle at least a bit? That's how I'm measuring success.
Okay. On a lighter note, how would you say your family is adjusting to the new role that you have and the sort of spotlight that is being cast on you and your family?
So it's interesting, Dimitri, that, you know, I obviously had to talk about this change to my kids when I was deeply considering it. And my daughter, Blaze, who is 16, she said to me, because I said to her, Blaze, like, I'm thinking I have plans for us. I had all these things that I need to do. I have to get you to university. She's in grade 11. So she's got one more year of high school. I have all these things. And she said, Mom, you know, you're saying I a lot. So it's either, the decision is either about you or it's about all of us. And I chose the all of us because she was right.
Oh.
And
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hey. Okay. Go ahead.
So I was saying, Dimitri, that you know, when you have the blessing of your kids, you know you're doing the right thing. And not as much has changed. And it hasn't because I haven't been going back and forth to Ottawa, as I will have to do. But in these pandemic times, everything is virtual. Most things are virtual right now. So the travel back and forth is not happening with the frequency that it normally would, which is also a good thing because everything is constituency based, which I like very much. And, you know, getting to know people and the various agencies and talking to the executives in charge of them and the BIAs and, you know, the community folks. So that has been great because I've had all the time to do that right now. So things will change. You'll have to ask me this question maybe in 6 months when travel kicks in, because they're used to me, having engagements at night sometimes. So instead, those things in the evenings now that are caucus calls or whatever they are on Zoom.
Right.
I'm not traveling to them. So they're used to me having to do things at the evening sometimes, but frankly, while they're at school, I'm working and doing things like this interview with you.
Well, thank you very much, Marci. That's the end of my questions, and we are at 23 minutes, which is perfect.
Yes.
Once again, I'd like to say thank you, and it was wonderful to meet you. And most certainly, we will get back in touch with you in a little while and see how you're progressing, and
I hope
see
so.
see what you've been able to accomplish, and so on.
Please do not forget to like, comment, and share to our channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms. And for more information, please check out our website.